Ladies and gentlemen, the Near Fall Network proudly brings to you the modern day Micro Russian, the guru of grappling gab, the one, the only Shooter!
Near Fall Nation, say hello to the bald guy, and welcome to a brand new Drive-By with Shooter. First things first, I want to give a thank you to the Near Fall Network's very own King of Nerds for the awesome audio he recorded for my new and pretty kick-ass intro to Drive-By. I wanted to shorten that. My old intro was fun. I had a lot of sound clips in it from the awesome sport that is professional wrestling, but it's a little long, and I'm looking really close, guys, to moving this to a iTunes format and a downloadable podcast format. That being said, I didn't want to have a 1.5-minute intro on a podcast for a show that no one really knows much about, that doesn't really describe the show at all. So, reached out to King of Nerds. He, with joy and pride, responded with an awesome intro like only the King of Nerds could do. So, thanks again for that to our King. Now, I also wanted to thank everyone who took a listen to the TLC review that I did. A few of you checked it out, which I always appreciate. Every single one of you that takes the time to do that. I do want to say I apologize for the rough sound. My work schedule only permits me to typically do pay-per-view reviews after work on my way home. I added the video element to make it more enjoyable for you guys, give you something different with a pay-per-view review, especially considering we have the High Five and Party and the SmackDown review, which is a live feed. I can't do live all the time with the video, and when I can't do live, it's going to be in the car. So we had a rainstorm Monday on my way home, picked a lot of that up, picked up a lot of road sounds and windshield wiper sounds, and hey, I tried to clean it up the best I could, put a lot of time into that, just making it sound as good as it did for the video. It wasn't great, but it was what it was. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you can forgive that. I thought the content was solid, so it happens to the best of them. It is what it is. But again, thanks for checking it out, and continue to check out the Near Fall Network's pay-per-view reviews with your very own Shooter. I want to get into today's show, and I want to talk Survivor Series. We wrapped up last weekend with a crazy TLC that went from a okay card to a very interesting, possibly better card, just because of some illnesses that knocked some guys out. Got some matches we never, maybe one match we didn't think we'd see, and then we also got I'm going to say an early return of Kurt Angle to a WWE ring, which is awesome. Good show. Already talked about it, but we'll move on right into Survivor Series. So, Monday night, we kind of get a really strong feeling of what at least part of the card for this year's Survivor Series is going to look like. Now, where I find it odd is the week before, Jinder challenges Brock Lesnar. Now, I don't find that weird. What I find odd is they kind of stated it to where, well, Brock Lesnar's gonna respond to Jinder's challenge next week on Raw. And then at the opening of this week's Raw, we kind of just get it thrown out there that it's SmackDown versus Raw, champion versus champ. They highlighted every match and the current champs and who's gonna face off. Which, it just was weird that we didn't actually get. I think it would have made more sense if Brock Lesnar would have came out, accepted a challenge with Paul Heyman, kind of laying a smackdown like Paul Heyman does, and then because he accepts the challenge, maybe we get, this is what's going to happen. We could have opened it with that and then had Angle coming out and saying, well, this is a good idea. I'm going to propose that we do champion versus champion, Raw versus SmackDown, blah, blah, blah. Maybe that would have, I don't want to say that wouldn't have worked out as a, hey, we just thought of it with the invasion, but maybe not. I don't know. But it is what it is. I just found it kind of odd how they played it one week and then completely changed it. And again, maybe that has something to do with the illness, but I still don't think. I think this stuff was probably in the works for a while, but how are we really to know? So anyway, we get what I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I'm already pumped for Survivor Series. Literally, TLC ends, Raw the next night, and I'm already pumped for the next pay-per-view. Like, I know there's haters. I know there were people out there that thought TLC was garbage, and I just don't get that at all. I know people that are irritated with Lesnar versus Jinder, but listen, if I'm hearing a lot of people saying that they're excited about a pay-per-view when another pay-per-view just ended, and we're constantly hearing how there's an oversaturation of the product, which I don't disagree with, but it's just interesting that I'm hearing so many people now saying how excited they are for Survivor Series, and to me that's a good thing. I like the idea of champions versus champions. I actually always kind of thought that that's what Night of Champions should be, or Clash. I know they use Night of Champions now. I think they used to use Clash of Champions, and then they switched it right to Night of Champions. I actually think that is what the champion versus champion show should be. But since you don't do brand combinations other than the Big Four, I guess Survivor Series makes the most sense. You know, we used to be teams of 5 strive to survive, but now we're doing champion versus champions and then 2 classic Survivor Series matches as of right now, a Raw team and a SmackDown team for both the men and the women. And I think this is really interesting, guys, and I think it's a lot of fun. We're going to see matches you don't always see. Look, we all wanted to see Balor versus AJ. Of course we did. But we all knew it's going to be a while before that happened, since we have this brand split that's keeping, certain guys and certain girls apart. And then it happened because of unfortunate circumstances. But then we lead right into the fact that Survivor Series is going to be SmackDown versus Raw, champion versus champion, and we're getting some really awesome matches out of this. Now, could titles change before then and cause some shakeup? Hey, anything's possible. I'm not going to write that off and say that that's not going to happen, because it totally could. But even if you can push aside your hatred for the idea that Jinder is facing Brock, for whatever reason you have your personal hatred that you don't want that to happen, whatever, you're getting the Shield and Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose versus the Usos, which will probably be the match of the night. Let's just be 100% honest. That has so much potential written all over it. And then you get your women's match, which will currently be Alexa Bliss versus Natalya. I mean, I think that has a lot of potential. Bliss is getting better and better. Each and every week she improves, which I think is completely awesome. I mean, she's been good for a long time, but she just shows that she continues to learn and continues to grow. And Natty's a veteran. Natty can have a good match night in and night out if she can work good with an opponent. And I think her and Bliss would put on a hell of a show. You move on to the US and IC title, The Miz versus Baron Corbin. I mean, anytime I get to see The Miz in action, I'm all for it. And I'd be interesting to see, Baron Corbin and The Miz and how they would match up. Now, with those two matches, we have heels and faces. Or, I'm sorry, we have heels versus heels instead of heels versus faces. And I know that's kind of an odd thing in WWE. It doesn't happen that often. I know Vince does not like that. So that's why I said maybe we see a title change before then. But let me fantasy book this one for you. How cool would it be to have Natalya versus Alexa Bliss, and the match is over, maybe Bliss wins, maybe Natalya wins, and Bliss's buddy Nia comes out and beats the crap out of her for it, and then Carmella comes out and cashes in. I mean, there's all kinds of weird possibilities that could happen with that, just for that match alone. And then when you add, which I'm not just going to touch on briefly, but you add the SmackDown Invasion angle that we did, the hashtag Under Siege that we did on Monday night, and how SmackDown's bringing the fight to Raw. And then the lack of the lack of repayment from Raw to SmackDown the next night. Yet Daniel Bryan saying, we're going to get paid back for this. I find all of this very interesting, and to see people already disliking this story and where it's going, I don't understand. Like, you can break it down, say, well, it doesn't make sense that there's faces and heels fighting on the same team for the brand. Well, listen, guys, it's professional wrestling. It doesn't have to make sense all the time. It just has to be fun, enjoyable, cool, and entertaining. That's all I ask for. Look, I watched Game of Thrones and Walking Dead, 2 of the best TV shows on television, and there are times where some of the shit they do makes 0 sense. But I'm entertained by it, so I continue to watch it. And it doesn't have to make sense. Especially in pro wrestling. We literally were about to watch a guy dressed in drag fight a guy dressed in face paint. And you're trying to figure out why it's okay for faces and heels to be on the same team against another team of faces and heels. It's brand loyalty, guys. You know, I don't like all my coworkers, but if a rival company came in and tried to take our stuff over, I'd work with all of them to keep it. It's just the way it is. It's common sense. So if you don't get that, you might want to just take a look at life in general and realize how things in reality do sometimes work out. And opposites sometimes do attract, and sometimes you just have to work with your enemy. I don't know how that goes over some people's heads, but it does. But all that being said, I'm super excited for Survivor Series. I can't wait for Survivor Series to go down, and I can't wait to see just exactly how it all plays out. Hang tight, guys. Last week, I debuted the brand new segment for Drvie By called Rapid Fire, and I'm thinking it's sticking around. I hope you liked it, because you're getting it next. It's time for Rapid Fire. Get ready, because we're going full auto. First target, JD and Asuka. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. Sometimes, I don't even understand why some people continue to watch the WWE product. This past weekend at TLC, we were able to witness the main roster debut of the Empress of Tomorrow, Asuka. She took on Emma in what was a very entertaining and solid match. But apparently, because it wasn't a squash match, Asuka, well, she's being booked wrong, and her character is going to suffer on Raw. Are you serious with this? The best part is that one of the most outspoken people venting on this situation was none other than JD from New York. Yeah, that guy. The guy who talks about how much he knows about wrestling, how much he knows about storytelling, and then demonstrates how much he doesn't know with his tweets and his podcast. Let's be real, people. Emma should not have been squashed. While Asuka and her streak should be protected, she doesn't need to kill everyone she faces right off the bat. NXT is a different world, regardless of what you want to believe, and especially when it comes to the women. With the women on NXT, it's still largely a training ground. So it's not remotely out of the question that Asuka would meet a tougher group of women on the main roster. I'm not one of those people that just automatically assumes an NXT talent will be ruined when they make it to the big show. And quite frankly, there are way more call-ups that have worked out really well than ones who haven't. I also find it downright impossible to condemn a main roster career to failure after the first match. That's asinine. And so are the people who say it. Next target, the GOAT versus the Cleaner. This past weekend, a fan tweeted Chris Jericho saying that he just watched Omega vs. Okada 3 and to forget about Jericho because Omega is the best in the world by far. This, of course, prompted a response from Y2J where he stated that Omega isn't even the best in Winnipeg, which of course is Omega's hometown. This got a response from Omega where he basically says it's best not to meet your heroes because they could be a corporate stooge. Throwback to being the elite. Meanwhile, Jericho then went on a Twitter blocking spree while shitting all over indie wrestling, and I was laughing all night. People were really attacking Jericho, saying he forgot where he came from and they were defending Omega's honor. Let me clue you in, guys. Jericho and Omega are friends. Jericho's had him on his podcast and he even put him over. Let me give you a second clue. Jericho is planning a rock and wrestling cruise that just so happens to involve one of those indie promotions that he was supposedly bashing. Do you really think he would talk shit about a guy who works with the promotion from time to time that he is having on his cruise? That he is doing business with? This is either A, a complete elaborate work to build to something for his Cruise of Jericho, or B, Jericho taking the opportunity to massively troll people and then realize who he just doesn't want to talk to on Twitter anymore. I think it's a pretty safe bet that either way, there were probably some private text messages between Jericho and Omega while this whole thing was going on. At the end of the day, Y2J's Twitter mentions will be a little bit smarter and he will be a little less irritated by what he reads on social media. It's called calling the herd. Last target, the Big Red Machine and his Big Red Shovel. Fan favorite Finn Balor spent his TLC beating the Bullet Club leader who followed him after his tenure as leader. None other than the phenomenal AJ Styles. He then spent his Monday night looking at the lights after 3 chokeslams from a returning Kane. Of course the internet explodes and talks about the madness that is Vince McMahon and how he's out of touch and buries all the fan favorites. Take a time out, guys. This was simply done to build Kane to make it a bigger deal when Braun Strowman returns and retires him. Kane's been off TV for long enough that he might need to add a little bit more to his resume. I wouldn't be surprised to see him beat a few more big names in the build to this showdown. Finn, he'll be fine. And so will whoever else Kane beats. We can't have every single superstar we love win every single match they have. It would get boring, predictable, and it would stink worse than Kane's ex, Katie Vick. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed Rapid Fire. I want to close the show out talking about a couple topics that came out this week. Last week I spoke of Nia Jax and the rumored exit or personal leave of absence in my Rapid Fire segment. But more stuff came out. A Sports Illustrated article basically said that she was unhappy with pay. She was unhappy with the fact that she was going to lose to Sasha Banks at TLC, and that's why she walked. And one of the bigger things in this story, at least to me, was that she supposedly reached out to her cousin. You might know him. His name is The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. And that he is the one who told her to just leave. Now, this kind of goes in a lot of places because since that article came out, Nia has been tweeting again and kind of taking shots at the women on the SmackDown Survivor Series team. So that leads me to believe that maybe this whole thing was blown out of proportion. Even this article, I don't know where this, I'm going to be honest, I didn't do my due diligence, but I don't know who wrote this. I just know it came from Sports Illustrated. I don't know where he got his information, but as soon as I heard him, as soon as I heard it reported that The Rock told her to leave, I thought, that doesn't sound right to me. It's possible. But, Alexa Bliss, who is Nia's best friend, stated in an interview that Nia was sore and hurt and the road was kind of taking a toll on her body and her mind. She needed a break. So maybe she did call her cousin. Maybe she asked his advice and he said, listen, it's a tough business. If you're having these doubts and you're having questions about your position in the company, and if you want to stick to it with that position in the company, if it never changes, never gets better, this, that, and the other, maybe he said, I don't think he told her just to leave and quit. He probably said, ask for some time, take some time to yourself, rest up, heal up, and figure out if it's really what you want to do. If you take some time and you miss it, then that's what you want to do. If you take some time and you don't miss it, then you ask for the time, so come back when you're ready. And to me, that makes way more sense. It makes way more sense because of the way WWE handled the situation and presented the situation to the public, stating that she's taking time off for personal reasons. We still don't know what's going on with Neville other than the fact that he's no longer in the 205 Open. He's not been on the shows and nothing's officially been stated about him. See, there's two different things going on there, which makes me think the Nia thing is more to the fact of what Alexa Bliss has stated, and it's this whole story about The Rock and him telling her to quit or just leave. I don't buy that. The Rock, as long as The Rock's been a WWE company guy, and let's face it, The Rock is the biggest star in Hollywood right now, but he might, let's be honest, he wouldn't have been there without the WWE. It could be wrong. He wouldn't have been there without the WWE. So I just don't see him going that route and handling it that way with his cousin, especially when she's no Rock. It just goes to show that sometimes reporting isn't always what it seems. And it also goes to show that sometimes, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but sometimes a picture doesn't tell the whole story. And what I mean by that, WWE released its second quarter highlights, I guess, or its second quarter report. In businesses, I'm not a business person per se, but especially in publicly traded companies, they have these quarterly reports where they basically have to kind of come up with all their earnings, their losses, and justify them to their shareholders, because the shareholders want to see that the company is responsible and the company is growing. This is one of the reasons WWE cut pyro, because they were losing money on that and they weren't making the gains that they apparently wanted. However, and I'm just as guilty as the next guy. I sat here and talked about how bad Jinder is as a champ, and I still think he is. But we see these shots of empty arenas, and just last week I talked about on the show how, the ratings are, down, but everyone's equating that to bad business, and, the empty arenas, and it's bad business, and business is down, and everyone's ringing the death bell for WWE, and if they don't change something, they're going down the toilet. Well, I'm afraid I have some bad news. If that was what your goal was, if you were hoping the WWE would fail, because they're far, far, far from failing.
not only are they far from failing, but they're doing pretty damn good. I want to go over some highlights from their second quarter report, and I'm going to read this as a quote right off of corporate WWE.com. This is one of their highlights, and I quote, "Revenue increased 8% to a record $214.6 million. That's revenue. Increased 8% to $214.6 million. It goes on. As WWE's live events and network segments achieved their highest quarterly revenue in company history. Do you hear this? Their live events achieved their highest quarterly revenue in company history. Some of that probably has to do with ticket prices. I mean, everything goes up. But when that goes up, pay for the superstars go up. Costs for renting the buildings go up. So it all kind of washes out, in my opinion. And here we are, the WWE making their highest quarterly revenue in the history of the company in a year when people were trying to sit here and talk about how bad the product is, how bad the attendance is, and how obviously they must be just a sinking ship. This shows you they're not. I want to pick out a couple other things here from this report. The network averaged, had an average of 1.63 million paid subscribers for the second quarter of 2017, and that is also an 8% increase from the second quarter of 2016. So when you match the quarters from those 2 years, they're up 8% for 2017. Like, these numbers, guys, these are huge. Let me see if there's anything else that really sticks out. They got some new sponsors, which obviously increases their revenue. But basically, long story short, they've increased the number of subscribers to the network, which is what they wanted to do. They've increased the revenue overall for the company. Whatever they're doing is working. They've expanded into markets. They've expanded into India. They got some new markets in the Middle East. And I believe China, I don't know if China was a new market, but they're gaining new markets everywhere, and that's helping increase the revenue. Listen, if WWE was in dire straits, Vince McMahon would do what needed to be done to make sure that they got on top. And if Vince didn't, Triple H did, Stephanie would, someone in that company would take the reins and take it where it needs to be. But it's not happening because it's not needed yet. And it doesn't sound like it's going to be anytime soon. Because when you're making record profits for a quarter that's never been done in a company before, you're on pretty safe ground. So let's just calm down. And, I don't like Jinder as a champ either anymore. I'm done with it. But he's not killing the company, and neither is Roman Reigns. And this clearly shows the legitimacy to the whole Cody Rhodes, Roman Reigns Twitter thing, where Cody's saying he's the biggest draw in the industry, and Roman's like, sit down, son, because you're not doing what we're doing. And clearly, they're far from it. Guys, as always, I appreciate you stopping in and giving this a listen. Don't forget to tune in to all the great things we have on Nearfall Network Facebook page. Monday, High Five and Party. Wednesday, SmackDown Live Recap. Thursday and Friday, the Monday Night Wars, Raw, and Nitro. We do what we can to give you quality content. Guys, it's been real. It's been fun. We'll catch you next time.